Marcus Solis up in Westchester County, where, Marcus, we're told there was a water rescue there?
Going on right now, Bill. You can see, we'll let the pictures do the talking here. We're in Elmsford, and you can see members of the Fairview Fire Department paddling out there. They're going to get some residents who have called in and said they've ridden it out long enough. This is what folks were hoping to avoid, emergency crews were hoping to avoid, hoping that people would have cleared out, but they did not. Part of the reason is because this is a flood-prone area. It floods during regular storms, but what we're hearing from residents is that it hasn't flooded quite like this. One resident says in 40 years of living here, he's never seen it quite like this. Another gentleman said he hasn't had water in his house on the higher part of the street since Tropical Storm Floyd back in 1999. The residents here, some of them have left because they, you have to cut the power to the house once the water gets this high. The water you are seeing, that is actually the Sawmill River that has come over its banks. On the other side, behind those houses, is the parkway. That's why, those parkways flood. They were closed since last night, and the water simply has nowhere to go. It comes over its banks, and firefighters here say they expect to make a couple of trips. Not clear exactly how many people they're going to take out of that house there. When we got here, we saw people waving to us, and it was clear that they were kind of stuck. And if you look at, I don't know, Brian, if you can go in a little bit, there's a hose coming out of the front. That is a pump. I guess they're trying to pump out some of the water, which is now on the first floor of the house. Forget about basements. In this area, basements are virtually non-existent. But really, I mean, how much is that really helping? Because the water that is being pumped out is coming right back into the house. So these folks have had enough. They want to get out of there, and the fire department now on hand to clear out some of the people. Now, if you come back a little bit further, Brian, to that mailbox, that brown mailbox there in the house number 41, that water has risen probably about a foot to a foot and a half just in the last hour. So the water is still coming up. I mean, it was up here, and it continues to rise.
Marcus, if you could have your photographer push back into that Zodiac, have your photographer push back into the Zodiac. They were having some problems. They were paddling, but that's got an engine in it, and they're trying to start the engine. If you watch this, we see him trying to start that engine, and he clearly can't.
Yeah, and the chief was telling them as they were going out is that you might be able to paddle all the way there because the depth is, it's tough to gauge exactly how high it is, how many feet that water is, and that's why they were, they didn't go out with the engine started, and they thought they could just maybe paddle all the way there.
Looks like he's got it started now.
But, they're getting there.
Yeah, he got it started now.
So they got it going. I mean, they didn't want to start it when the ground was too shallow, and they went to as far deep as they could paddle, before it wasn't as effective as having the engine going. But you see people standing there on the porch, they're on the phone, and they want to get out, and the expectation was that they maybe should have gotten out a little bit earlier to avoid this, but nevertheless, the emergency crew is doing what they do. They come and they're helping some of the residents out. If we can come back here, you can just get a sense of the water. I mean, it's just continuing to rise. A second mailbox almost overcome. This house here, the homeowner here was saying that he hasn't had water in his house since Floyd, and that was back in 1999. Can we go back
and, Marcus, if we got people taken out of the house, we'd like to see that. If we could zoom back in, if this little kid's going to get taken out, let's take a look. And they could not do that if they just had a paddle. They would have to have their engine going, which is why it was crucial for that Zodiac rescue boat to get its engine going, because they can't use one little paddle to take people out of that house. So let's see.
And they have life jackets on that boat. They're going to put it on the kids before they take them out. They took some of the life jackets out there. You can see that even the rescuers have helmets on. So they're going to do this safely. They're going to take their time. They expect to make more than one trip. People inside maybe gathering some last belongings as they await. And there you see the life jacket being lifted up.
Have the rescuers told you how they're going to do this step by step? It doesn't look like they're going to be going into the house at all. It looks like they're handing in, but clearly running into.
No, but if I can jump in.
Yeah, go ahead, Marcus.
Yeah, if I can jump in here a little bit, and that's part of it, is that the concern here was flooding. Not the wind damage hasn't taken full effect yet, and this seems to be a repeat of Floyd. Greenburgh, Elmsford is in the town of Greenburgh, is getting hammered, and they are having some bad flooding. Already 14 roads in the town are impassable. Greenburgh wasn't expecting to open an emergency shelter, and they have at Veterans Park, which is in Ardsley, so they did open a shelter this morning, and in the town of Greenburgh, one of the community centers, we understand, is already flooded. We were on the main roads, 119 and 9A, and again, that's a flood-prone area. It's a low-lying area. it was unbelievable, the amount of water that has come up, and it's still coming up. The water continues to rise. As you see, they're starting to get the first occupant, house occupant there into the boat.
It looks like an elderly
position
person.
them, and now, yeah, and now a second is getting on. And
little kid there in the front, and maybe
we'll see if it's just these two. Yeah, and so we'll see how many before they decide that's enough, and then they'll come back.
Well, it's a small Zodiac marker, so I don't think they can fill it up to fill.
Yeah, in fact, it looks like he gave him the high sign, so that's probably, they're going to come back. And it's, not a tremendous distance, probably less than 100 yards, so it should be relatively quick. But again, the water has just come up, and the thing is, it's been coming up through the morning, so I think these folks maybe thought, well, we made it through the night, it was okay. The worst is, behind us, but as we know, the storm is not over yet, and in the short time we've been here, we've seen the water rise, and it's still coming up.
Definitely so, and Bill Evans and Lee Goldberg were here, and we're right now, most of our area dealing with the back end of this storm as it approaches, which is can be a wind and slight rain event, and we're watching this rescue as it happens.
Zipping away now.
Yep, they're pulling away from the house.
And this will be the story over the next few hours as we continue our coverage of Hurricane Irene, now Tropical Storm Irene, as it landed in the New York City area, New Jersey first, then in New York City, and it makes its way up north. High tide on the northern shore of Long Island and the eastern side of Connecticut and the shoreline there about 11 o'clock, and that's the next danger zone. Sade and Diana will be along to watch us and guide us through that. 10 o'clock, 10:01 here in New York City, as Channel 7 Eyewitness News is bringing you continuous coverage of the entrance and slow departure. Faster, though, it's good that it's been pretty fast. Fast departure of Hurricane Irene, and then the problems. Power problems of 1.5 million households in the tri-state area in Connecticut, New York, and Long Island, and New Jersey without power, and that's going to be the problem. That number is likely to rise as we continue our coverage.
Most of the area now, the tri-state area, transitioning from recovery to responding to what is now Tropical Storm Irene. As you can see, this family that was just rescued now, rescuers pulling that Zodiac boat up on the pavement of what is a street in Elmsford, which is in Greenburgh.
It looks like an elderly gentleman there. Marcus, do we have a sense of how many people are in those homes that are lining this little this street?
I'm going to try and ask right here. Hello, sir. How are you? You okay? You doing okay?
I'm okay. I don't want to be in the news.
Oh, okay. All right, but everyone's okay?
Yeah.
How many more people in the house?
Another 4.
Another 4 people. All right, so there you have it. The family, 2 elderly residents out of that house have been brought to safety by the Fairview Fire Department, and 4 others still inside the house, and so they're going back. But you can see it's just a serious situation here in Elmsford. The Sawmill River has spilled its banks on the other side, the Parkway, and that has been closed. That's been closed since 6 last night. This is Babbitt Court, and this is an area that floods typically. But as we've said, residents are saying they've never seen this. One gentleman lives here 40 years. In fact, I'm going to grab him. Freddie, let me talk to you for a second. You've been here a long time, right? Tell me what this is like.
This is the worst ever. Definitely, this is the worst ever.
Now, a lot of folks, I guess, decided they could ride it out, but we're seeing otherwise.
Well, all the time. We've seen this 2 or 3 times the last 10, 15 years. Well, what you mentioned before.
People need to call for help, I guess.
I guess so, yeah. The town comes in.
Now, you're a little bit on high ground. Are you concerned for your house at all?
Oh, not at all. I don't get flooded at all. I got a crawl space in there, and it's never been flooded.
Even with the water coming up?
Even with the water coming up. Even if it comes up this, because I'm almost above the water table, according to the,
All right, so feeling confident. Thank you, Freddie. And you can see firefighters continuing to make their trip out back to that house. 4 other residents still in the house, and they'll be brought out as the fire department was called onto the scene probably about 15 minutes ago, and they arrived with a boat. Now a larger rescue vehicle has arrived here too. And they are making the second trip. There are life jackets on that boat. They'll put it on the residents, make sure that they're okay. We've seen others who have actually waded through it when the water was a little lower, and they were able to self-evacuate. And they said they've had enough.
Yeah,
they were here all night.
And it looks
two other people coming out of that house, Marcus. You got to just sort of picture yourself inside that family situation. 6 people inside that house. We saw a young person and an elderly person, and the internal decision-making process of that family. They sent the youngest and the oldest out first, and now some of the others are coming out. And there's a total of 2 more after this.
Marcus, considering that area is prone to flood, are any of the other residents, any of the other neighbors nearby, has there been any criticism of the fact that that area wasn't evacuated?
Well, I mean, the people are told to leave. I mean, obviously, but like we've seen throughout the area, people who live in flood-prone areas say, oh, I've ridden out, X amount of storms in the past. This one won't be any different. And so, you can't force them to leave because, it is a mandatory evacuation, but they're not going to come by force and take people out. So,
right. The difference here, of course, the difference here.
This is the worst case scenario. Yeah.
The difference here, Marcus,
so
is that many of them, let me just say this, the difference here is that many of these tropical storms that have come up take a hard right turn along Long Island and go out east around the other end of Long Island. They very rarely come up the Hudson Valley there and into Westchester County. This has happened, and that's the problem we're having today.
Right. And it's almost a repeat of Floyd, because during Floyd, the hardest hit areas were in northern Westchester, and it was areas far away from the coast, and so Mount Kisco, Yorktown. As we see the little girl there, she's okay, and 2 girls coming off the boat, so they've got 2 left in the house. But there were 12 inches of rain. Some spots got 17 inches of rain. Unfortunately, a young girl was killed during Floyd in Dutchess County, swept away by a river. So these are areas that are away from the coast but experience tremendous flooding. Liz had asked a question about mitigating some of this flooding, and there has been talk of it, and there have been some complaints by the town supervisor, Paul Feiner, here after the last storms that we had a few months ago where it flooded down. But, it hasn't gotten past the talking stage, really.
Marcus, we're watching this.
This is what we see.
We're watching this rescue continue in Elmsford. 6 people.
And Bill, you see, the boat is actually the boat is impeded by a child's toy that is floated into the stream here.
We're efforting another rescue that's going on at the same time. We're going to show both of them together. This is in Babylon, although we see a guy walking across. I think we've missed the deeper part of it, I assume. But there's someone being towed that was in a boat. This is in Babylon, out on Long Island. I think we missed the beginning of it, so I don't know the backstory of this. But we saw people walking, so where we picked it up, the water was not that deep. We don't know the backstory of what the deal is with the person inside that little rowboat.
Right, and didn't look like it was with firefighters or actual first responders, perhaps a friend or a neighbor. But
back in Elmsford now with the 2 other people, 2 remaining people, and we don't know. We're going to assume they're the parents.
Deputy Chief Packy Murray.
And Bill, I've got the deputy chief here from the fire department,
Chief
Murray. Talk a little bit about the night and what you expect for the rest.
Let's see that rescue while you're doing that, though,
well,
please.
Hopefully, as soon as the rain ends, we're going to start pump outs all night long. We mitigated situations where there was wires down and things. We taped them off. We're waiting for Con Ed. But all the people on the street were notified by the police department to evacuate early. Some chose to stay, and then this is what happens. And the water's still rising right now, and they had a concern since they had children and elderly people in the house. They gave us a call to come and to bring them out.
Describe the process. I mean, we've seen it's pretty straightforward, but you take life jackets as well. You want to make this.
Well, you have to make the people that you're rescuing safe, just in case something does happen, because there is a strong current. This is called swift water, even though it looks like it's standing up here, but down over where the house is right now, that's right near the river. And where the river is, you have moving water.
You've been around the town too. I mean, there's extensive flooding.
There is extensive flooding. Yes. We have even 287. There's 3 feet of water on 287 under the Norwood Road Bridge. Tarrytown Road, we have extensive flooding.